Have you ever wondered what led to the English Civil War? The English Civil War, a tumultuous period of clashes and conflicts, unfolded from 1642 to 1651. It was a time of political, religious and economic upheaval that pitted the supporters of King Charles I against the Parliamentarians, led by Oliver Cromwell. This was not a simple disagreement, instead, it was a complex web of tensions that had been simmering for years. The monarchy and parliament were at odds, their relationship strained by disagreements over governance, taxation, and the reach of royal authority. Religious divisions, particularly between Anglicans and Puritans, added fuel to the fire. Socio-economic disparities between the king's supporters, known as the Royalists, and the Parliamentarians, only intensified the discontent. So what exactly triggered this catastrophic clash? Let's delve deeper into the causes. The seeds of discord were sown with governance issues. As the reign of King Charles I unfolded, it became clear that his approach to ruling the kingdom was fraught with controversy. The king's philosophy of governance was rooted in the belief that his authority was divine, and thus, he was answerable to God alone. This belief in the divine right of kings led him to make decisions that were not in line with the interests of Parliament. One of the most contentious issues between the king and Parliament was taxation. Charles believed that he should have the sole authority to levy taxes. However, Parliament, representing the interests of the people, strongly disagreed. They believed that the king's power should be checked, and that the consent of Parliament was necessary for such major decisions. This disagreement over taxation was not merely an economic issue, it represented a fundamental disagreement about the nature of governance and the balance of power within the kingdom. The tensions between the king and Parliament came to a head in 1642. In a move that shocked the nation, Charles attempted to arrest 5 members of Parliament. This audacious act was seen as a direct assault on the rights and privileges of Parliament. It was a clear signal that Charles was not afraid to use force to assert his authority. The attempted arrest was a tipping point. It marked a significant escalation in the conflict between the king and Parliament. This event did not occur in a vacuum. It was the culmination of years of political tensions and disagreements. The attempt to arrest the 5 members of Parliament was a clear indication that Charles was willing to go to great lengths to assert his royal authority. Religious and social differences further fanned the flames of this growing hostility. As we delve deeper into the English Civil War, we will see how these differences shaped the conflict and its consequences. The divisions over governance were just the beginning. The conflict was about to enter a new phase, one marked by religious and social divisions. Different religious beliefs and social statuses added fuel to the fire. As we delve deeper into the English Civil War, we cannot overlook the profound religious and social divisions that played a crucial role in escalating the conflict. Differences in religious beliefs were a major bone of contention. On one hand, we had the Anglicans, ardent supporters of the Church of England who were predominantly loyal to the king. On the other hand, we had the Puritans, a significant faction of parliamentarians, who sought to purify the Church of England from what they perceived as residual Catholic practices. This religious schism was not merely a disagreement over theological nuances, it was a tussle for power and influence that deeply divided the nation. Adding to the religious discord were stark social and economic disparities. The Royalists, or Cavaliers as they were often called, were largely drawn from the nobility and the gentry. They enjoyed the privileges of wealth, land, and status, often at the expense of the common people. They held a vested interest in preserving the status quo and their advantageous position within it. Contrastingly, the Parliamentarians, also known as Roundheads, were a more diverse group. They included merchants, craftsmen, and farmers, many of whom were becoming increasingly disillusioned with a system that favored the elite. They yearned for a society where power was not concentrated in the hands of the few but distributed more equitably. These religious and social divisions were more than just ideological differences, they were deep-seated grievances that festered over time. The Anglicans felt threatened by the radical changes proposed by the Puritans, while the economic and social inequalities between the Royalists and Parliamentarians only served to widen the chasm between the two factions. In this volatile mix of religious discord and social inequality, resentment and mistrust brewed, tensions escalated, and compromise became increasingly elusive. The stage was set for a bitter and protracted conflict, one that would alter the course of English history forever. These tensions eventually erupted into open conflict. The Civil War can be divided into 3 main phases. This isn't just a chronological division, but a way to understand the shifting power dynamics, strategies, and outcomes that shaped a tumultuous decade in England's history. Let's start with the First Civil War, which spanned from 1642 to 1646. It was a time of unrest, uncertainty, and intense combat. The conflict kicked off with the Battle of Edgehill, a bloody encounter that laid bare the deep divisions between King Charles I's Royalists and the Parliamentarians. The Royalists initially had the upper hand, winning several key battles. But as we know, the tide of war is fickle. The Parliamentarians, under the leadership of Oliver Cromwell and Thomas Fairfax, rallied and established a formidable fighting force known as the New Model Army. This army would turn the tide in favor of the Parliamentarians, culminating in their decisive victory at the Battle of Naseby in 1645. The first phase of the Civil War concluded with the Royalists' surrender in 1646, marking the end of King Charles I's reign. Following the First Civil War, England entered a period known as the Interregnum, which lasted from 1649 to 1660. This was a time of significant political change. After Charles I's trial and execution in 1649, England was declared a republic. The monarchy was out, and the Commonwealth, under Oliver Cromwell's rule, was in. But this period was far from peaceful. Cromwell, now Lord Protector, ruled England, Scotland, and Ireland with an iron fist. This period saw a shift from a monarchy to a republic, an unprecedented move in English history. Just when it seemed England might have a moment of respite, the Second Civil War and beyond erupted from 1648 to 1651. Royalist uprisings sparked another wave of conflict, but Cromwell's forces, battle-hardened and disciplined, were prepared. They decisively defeated the Royalists, effectively ending their resistance. But the conflict wasn't limited to England. It extended to Scotland and Ireland as Cromwell sought to suppress any lingering resistance. The wars ultimately ended with the defeat of the Royalist Scots at the Battle of Worcester in 1651, which led to Charles II's exile. The end of these wars marked a significant turning point in English history. The Civil War had reshaped the political landscape, brought about social upheaval, and altered the course of the nation. It was a time of turmoil and transformation, of shifting allegiances and radical ideas. It was a period that tested the resilience of the English people and ultimately redefined the nation's identity. In the aftermath, England would see the restoration of the monarchy under Charles II in 1660, marking the end of the Commonwealth and Protectorate, and the beginning of a new era. But the repercussions of the Civil War, the lessons learned, and the changes it wrought would continue to reverberate through English society for centuries to come. So there you have it, the three phases of the English Civil War. Each phase was a chapter in a larger narrative, a story of power, conflict, and change that shaped the destiny of a nation. The Civil War left a profound impact on England. This wasn't just a conflict of armies on the battlefield, but a war of ideas and principles that would reshape the nation's future. One of the most significant outcomes was the limitation on the monarchy's power. The Civil War established a crucial precedent that the monarchy was not an absolute power, but one subject to law and parliamentary consent. This was a seismic shift in the balance of power, and set the stage for the constitutional monarchy that England would eventually become. But the war also gave rise to another profound idea: republicanism. As the monarchy's authority waned, the concept of a republic, a state without a monarch, gained prominence. This was a radical departure from the status quo, and even though the monarchy was eventually restored, the idea of republicanism had taken root. It was an idea that would continue to influence political thought and discourse in England and beyond. The Civil War also set in motion significant religious and social changes. The execution of Charles I, a king believed to be appointed by divine right, was a shock to the system. It was a clear indication that no one, not even the king, was above the law. Following this, religious toleration became more widespread. The Anglican monopoly on religious practice was broken, and Puritans, along with other non-conformist religious groups, gained greater freedom to practice their faith. Socially, the Civil War led to a shift in power and wealth. The gentry and merchant classes, who had largely supported the parliamentarian cause, found their status elevated in the post-war society. This marked the beginning of a more meritocratic society, where wealth and status were not just inherited, but could be earned. Indeed, the English Civil War shaped the trajectory of the country for centuries to come. It was a war that changed not just the political landscape, but also the social and religious fabric of the nation. and its echoes can still be heard today in the principles that guide modern Britain.